Oh hey, welcome back to the Schwartzitecture Studio where we're talking about architecture, and we have a fun little project to look at today. Cool little design project in Toronto that recently opened a pretty sexy little restaurant called Occhiolino. And it's kind of a cool project in that, one, it's beautiful. It's a really great looking project, but it's also kind of a reuse project. So this was an older building, an existing building that they repurposed, and if anything, it was an automotive garage, which is interesting. And if you stick around to the end, I'll show you what it originally looked like. It's quite the transformation. But let's dive right into it and take a tour. So it's called Pastificio Occhiolino. Babidi boopity. I don't speak Italian, so I probably butchered that. It's by, this is the designer, Guido Costantino Projects in Toronto. I'm not sure if he's an architect or not. I actually just checked out his website to see if I could figure that out. It doesn't really say. It said he kind of dabbles in architecture and design. Might be an interior designer. I'm not totally sure, but funnily enough, when I was looking at the website, he designed, does a lot of hospitality, a lot of restaurants, nice houses, things like that. I saw a restaurant in there that he designed that I used to work at, so kind of a funny little connection. I wasn't expecting that. And we'll also give a shout out to the designer, Riley Snelling. See, these are some great photos, but let's look more at the design. Let's get into it. So this is kind of the front entryway, and I mentioned before how this was a reuse project and there was an existing building. I think that's what we're looking at back in here. You can see that little brick wall. Right, you just see a little bit of a snippet in there. I think that's the existing building, and this whole sort of facade, pardon my English here, this is all new, and I think that's actually built outside the existing walls, and kind of giving it like a new face, a new sort of frontage to greet all the patrons that come to this. And this is probably a patio space out here in the summer, I imagine. Nice little tree, kind of a really nice looking spot. I love how understated it is. They've done a really nice job with just these repeating elements, right? This is this beautiful arch doorway. This is another little arch there, matches exactly. And then you have kind of a half arch thing going on over here. So you're just repeating these same elements. The brickwork is super simple. Nothing fancy, but the fact that it is brick, you don't see a lot of contemporary projects necessarily using brick. It is more expensive, but it's super durable. It's great material. I love the texture that it brings, but they did a nice job with this kind of understated gray. They sort of mirror that out here with this little wall. And it looks like they're kind of building right up to the property line as close as they can. I like that. Maximize what you can get out of the site. It's kind of a smallish site to begin with. So, and also interestingly enough, before it was an automotive garage, this was a carriage house. So this is a pretty old building in behind. And let's take a look at the inside. So they've mirrored some of the same materials, right? We have this really nice sort of understated stone and brickwork here for this staircase. Functional too, is bricks obviously got that nice texture. It's pretty slip resistant, and then they switched into something a little more contemporary up here that looks like some powder coated steel or something like that. There's a really restrained material palette, I think, in this project. I think they did a nice job of just keeping it simple, and letting the lighting and just sort of the atmosphere, and obviously there's going to be food and people in here, and just letting that kind of take center stage. So, but there's a couple nice little moves here. These little perforations in the wall, that's such a nice little touch, and it just gives a little bit of connection and functionality for sure to this bar area that's back here, and the people traveling up and down these stairs. You can tell when someone is going up and down these stairs because you just get a little glimpse of movement through these holes, right? And it also just visually connects these rooms a little bit. You can hear things as well, so that's just a really nice way to, instead of having some sort of disjointed rooms, you're getting that little bit of visual connection. So I really like that. That's nice. They've done some cool things in terms of the lighting. They've brought in this kind of false ceiling just down a little bit to make this space feel a little more intimate, I think, right? Because if that was like a 15-foot ceiling, it would kind of feel a little exposed. You're out in the open, but you bring that ceiling down, you feel a little more cozy. They've left some of the original material here, like this looks like it's all some of the original brickwork, which just has that really nice texture to it, and brings you back to the thought that this was an old building at one time. But then they do mirror that with, looks like some new drywall, and then you have some nice recessed lighting in here. And this is a great move when you have a really textured wall like this brick, and then you put a light in it along the top that's just kind of grazing vertically down the side of this. It's catching all those ridges and the bumps and really showing off the texture down here. And I love that. And then you just contrast that with like the really smooth, clean wood that's in the background there. I don't know, that's oak or maple, something like that. Pretty simple floor. Furniture is simple, and we'll look at some of that in detail too. There's a couple repeating elements here that are kind of nice, and they just lend a little bit of... There's like a language to this project, and everything sort of fits in terms of the material, but also these little design moves. And in particular, I'm looking at, obviously this stuff is all custom. Honestly, these benches don't look like the most comfortable thing in the world to be sitting on, but visually they're really nice. Comfort-wise, probably not the best, to be honest, but that's my first real critique. But look at this little detail here. I like this. So this kind of matches the white handrail that we saw earlier. But you have two posts, right? And this kind of cool little metal splice section that's coming into the table. And that's pretty similar to this shape here that you're getting out of these benches. It's kind of this T shape. Similar thing here. And guess what? That's mirroring exactly where these the backs of these benches line up. So you're sort of demarcating what one booth is. You're saying, hey, the spaces between these is kind of your zone, and you're breaking it up a little bit, and then you have the light just perfectly centered above, right? So really nice, clean, easy to clean, which is important in a restaurant for sure. There are some things here, like restaurant design is a tough one, but for me personally, like this space between these tables, man, that's tight. I know like a lot of modern restaurants have to do that. You're trying to up your table count and the number of patrons you can fit in there, because at the end of the day, this is a business. You do have to get people through and squeeze as many people in as you can. But man, you're sitting here and then you have someone sitting here, like you're pretty much in each other's conversations. I've been in places like that before. It's not my favorite. A little bit of buffer would be kind of nice, but again, it was a carriage house, so it's not a big building to begin with, so I'm sure they're pretty constrained with space, and anytime you can squeeze in an extra two people paying a bill, it helps pay your bills. So let's look at a few more details here. This is again nothing too crazy. There was those two elements with the leg tables that we saw here, and we also saw here. So these two elements we're starting to see that over and over again. Whoops, I got a little extra something on here. Oh, delete this. There we go. Because right here, this little column looks like a steel column. Again, it's got two little elements. If you zoom in, you got one here, and that's just, it breaks up the volume a little bit. Instead of one big table leg or one big column supporting this roof and the ceiling, if you put it in two, they're obviously not as big around, so they don't feel as intrusive or bulky, but you can provide the same amount of strength. So that's a nice way it's a little design trick to try and break up a big structural element. You just make a couple smaller ones, put them all side by side, and it acts like one big one, right? So more of this nice simple gray brick. This looks like a bar top or something over here, just with this, again, kind of white powder coated steel. And again, count the materials, right? We got kind of a gray floor, we got some brick, we got some white steel, we got this wood in the background. Furniture seems to all be wood with the white steel, and then you got a bit of white brick in the background, and that's kind of the limit of the materiality here. We have obviously some gypsum up on the top there, some drywall, and this is a nice view of the bar area going upstairs to the second level. I don't know if I love this, where you have the handrail or the guard for the stairs is kind of set between two bits of brick, right? You can see there's kind of this brick upstand wall there, and then the brick stairs, and this guard is slotted in the middle, this handrail slotted in the middle. And I'm just thinking, like, from a restaurant perspective, like, you're going to have the odd bit of food falling in there. You're carrying a plate of food up the stairs. Someone's going to trip eventually. Food's going to end up in there, and that's going to be a nightmare to clean out, that little gap in there. It's just kind of a funky little thing. I don't love that. It would have been nicer, I think personally, if the brick was straight across. You didn't have that gap, and then you just have the handrail floating on top of that. So I think that'd also be simpler, but who knows? Here you can see some more of those little perforations in the wall. I love that. What else we got here? So this is upstairs now. You come up the stairs, more of the same. Really beautiful lighting. This is, I guess, the angular plane of this. I don't know if they added a second floor to this. The second floor might be new, in which case you have to have these angular planes potentially, because this is like a secondary building on a lot. But anyway, that's a whole sort of zoning thing in Toronto. But if you know, you know. But again, similar material palette, and this is that beautiful trick where they took one big column, split it into two, and it feels a little more elegant. It's a little bit lighter. Really nice design trick. I've seen that used before. Understated. This is staged for photos, but like in a busy restaurant, like an empty counter like this, it's never gonna look like that. You're gonna have all kinds of stuff piling up in there, because it has to function at the end of the day. Another shot of the downstairs, kind of one cool funky light. This almost looks like a fireplace. No, I think this must be sort of the front, sort of hostess stand. Or no, actually no, this looks like a little service stand, because this is food in there. So this is like maybe brunches, things like that. You have someone there doing some stuff, some pastries or mimosas, or I don't know. Be good for events too. You have a little charcuterie board, something like that out there. Again, same materials though. We got drywall, white brick, gray brick, wood. Super understated, but really nice lighting everywhere. I think that's key. The photos do a really good job of that too. So looking at some of these details, just elegant, simple little handrail on this stair. I love that. And I love that little splice detail. It almost gets lost, but it looks like this little metal fin, it's going into the brick in this way, kind of into this slot right between these bricks, and it's anchored in there, and that's what's holding this thing in place. And that's such a clean little detail. Normally you'd have like the metal would turn back over here, and you'd have like some bolts sticking out of there, and it just wouldn't look as clean. So that's pretty sexy. I like that. And it makes me think they should have done something similar on that other staircase, right? Where we were looking at this, just like compare those two. This just doesn't look as clean. This looks like a mistake, quite frankly. It looks like something was an afterthought here. So I don't love that. That could have been a bit better. I will point out though, this upper stair look at how thin that is. The profile of this tread and riser, just like one piece of probably cold rolled steel, something like that. I don't know. Just white, nice and crisp, very elegant, classy. It's a classy looking place. Here's a detail at table. We looked at that. So the furniture is obviously custom. All this stuff kind of matches, and it looks really nice. And again, you have two elements that are just a little bit lighter than having one big thick leg in there. It just looks that much lighter and really finessed. It's very nice. Okay, so those are all the interior images. Now, if we go back here, we'll give you the special treat here at the end. So remember, this is what the building looks like now, and I'll just delete some of my marks here just to give you a nice crisp view. Occhiolino, just imagine this on a beautiful summer night in the patio, and there's music playing, and you're having your bolognese sauce and a glass of wine. Sounds amazing. Now, look at what it used to look like and how good of a job that these guys did. Well done, Guido. This is the street view of that same building. Wow, what a change. They did a great job. And you can see, so this was the original brick and stone and behind there, right? And they clearly added this second sort of false wall in front, right? With these little archways and whatever. They got half one over there. And it does look like they added a second story. You can't really see it. Maybe they... Interesting. Maybe that's tough to say, actually. You know what? A garage could have super high ceilings. I wouldn't be shocked if they did not add a floor. Maybe they raised the roof on this. There looks like there's new steel structure in there. So even if they didn't add a whole second floor, this could be like an 18-foot ceiling down here, right? And they could have added whatever, another 8 feet or something, and then you would get that second floor. So, and that's all hidden behind that beautiful new brick wall. So what a comparison. Let me just pull those side by side here so you can have a little look-see. What a difference, the before and after. That's shocking. I mean, photography does a really nice job too, right? With these these photos, you start cutting off everything to the left and everything, the dumpsters and everything to the right. But yeah, if you zoom in there, that is quite a difference. That is night and day. So anyway, fun little project. Wanted to take you for a tour. I'd love to eat there sometime. Maybe next time in Toronto, I'll have to check this out. Probably have to get a reservation because it's not very big. And I think they just opened, I don't know, earlier this year, late last year, so probably busy. But shout out to Guido Costantino. Really good job on this project. I like it. A couple little details that I would change, but hey, every project's like that. Nothing's perfect. So if you're into architecture videos and these little design reviews and looking at projects and architecture news and all that kind of stuff, you should subscribe. Subscribe to this channel because that's all I'm going to talk about is architecture related stuff. And if you like this one, if you're into pasta, give it a thumbs up. What's your favorite pasta dish? Let me know down below. Or if you want to see some projects highlighted, we can definitely take a look if you give me some suggestions. So thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. And keep on keeping on with architecture, I guess. I don't know. We'll see you next time. Cheers.